All right, it's time for Yogi and the BeachMan. Hi, I'm Jim the Yogi.
And I'm Rick Beach, the BeachMan.
We're two Michigan transplants now living in Southwest Florida.
In fact, we're cousins born in 1964, just a month apart.
I like to meditate.
And I like to play bass in a band.
I'm into chanting Om.
And I'm into throwing down some classic rock.
But together, we're on a mission
to promote people that are helping other people.
We want to make the world a better place.
One conversation at a time.
So sit back,
turn up the volume,
and get ready to laugh.
Because we like to have fun
while we spread the love.
Interviewing lovely people. Yes, we have fun.
All right, we're here today with Jesse Hoffman. Jesse is a mental performance coach and the founder of MindPeak Company. So Jesse, I'm Jim. Nice to meet you.
How you doing, Jesse? I'm Rick Beach, the BeachMan.
Rick,
and welcome.
Pleasure.
Yeah, welcome to our show.
Thank you,
appreciate
guys.
you being here today.
Yeah,
how are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing well. I cannot complain. Soaking up the rest of the humidity down here as we wrap up the summer in Florida, and just
I think we have about 3 more weeks of this, 3 to 4 more weeks of this, and then we're gonna get into heaven for about 8 weeks, and then, about 3 months, and then it'll get hot again. So,
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So, but yeah, thanks.
You said you're in Miami, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, very nice.
So tell us about MindPeak.
Yeah, so happy to tell you whatever you want to know, but as you said, I'm the owner of MindPeak. We are a mental performance coaching company. That's the term that I tend to use. My background is in primarily sports and performance psychology with emphases on organizational psychology and leadership development as well. So that stems from my background, more specifically in basketball and my time in university, working with my program in school. But right now, working with a lot more of the younger professional demographic. And so I help young professionals and entrepreneurs to really curate the right systems, habits, and routines to be able to perform at their highest level and to become the people that are capable of achieving the goals that they are setting out for. So that's my focus, is within the science-based methods of psychology and neuroscience. And I just love working with high achievers and high performers to accomplish whatever they set out to.
That's amazing. Where did you start off, and how did you get into all this?
Yeah, so if I were to tell you the long story, it probably starts way back in high school, simply working with my teammates on my basketball team. And, I went to a pretty successful high school basketball program and, had a few players that had good potential, one specifically who was one of my best friends, in high school. And being able to really see people perform at their highest levels, even at that age, had always been a curiosity of mine. And what does it really take? How do you tap into it? And what are the systems and what are the habits that it take to become great? And for me, a lot of that, in my opinion, starts within the mind. And so whether it's knowing how to communicate with someone to elicit the kind of outcomes that you want in a team-oriented perspective, that was really fascinating for me, working with that. But if we were to fast forward into college and my studies within psychology and working with the University of Pittsburgh as an undergraduate assistant in a Division I ACC basketball program, I had the unique experience of working with 3 different head coaches during my time there. And while studying leadership and leadership development, that was really a great experience to go along with my studies, to be able to analyze and see from behind the scenes the way that 3 totally different people led the team. All great aspects. Everyone has their pros, everyone has their cons. And so that fueled a lot of my desire to learn how to be a great leader, what drives people, and led me into studies within personality and all those things. And so now, fast forward to being a coach for over the past 5 years, it's been a great opportunity to connect with so many different people. And as I continue to refine my client base and who I'm really working with, and refine my messaging to them and how I can help a specific group of people. I've just learned that the kind of the root of everything is a number of things. Mainly, having emotional intelligence, I think, is totally undervalued. It's a buzzword that we're starting to hear more and more about, but it's definitely something that I pride myself on. And part of that being to take extreme ownership over everything around you. And it's how you communicate to people. It's the effort that you put into what you do, the outcomes that are derived from those efforts, and really, yeah, just acknowledging that everything that is out there for you to be achieved is only waiting for you to take the action. And that's a little bit off track from what you had asked, but
no,
in any
not
case,
really.
that's what I'm doing now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Jim.
No, you go.
No, I mean, so mainly you're working with, is it mainly, you said young professionals and athletes? So do you mainly specialize in the sports realm of things, or?
Yeah. So, I would say this, and, as a service-based entrepreneur and someone that wants to help everyone, but for the sake of growing a business, you have to be a bit refined within your marketing and your messaging and your ideal avatars and who you're trying to help. And so on the business side of things, that's something that I've always struggled with and probably will continue to struggle with. Right now, I primarily work with high-performing entrepreneurs and professionals. Those that are athletic minded or sports minded, that's a huge bonus, because there's a lot of commonalities between being a successful athlete and a successful entrepreneur or executive or professional. And so right now my focus is entrepreneurs.
I'm assuming that when you say there's a connection between those two, it's just probably just a discipline that athletes have, high-end athletes have, and high-end professionals would have.
It's having the attitude, the discipline, but also importantly, the routine and systems of preparing your body or your mind or whatever the case is for peak performance. And so, I like to always draw a comparison to my favorite athletes and whatever the case is. So if you think of Michael Jordan or LeBron James, they have their chalk routine. They throw the chalk up in the air. LeBron writes his kids' names on his shoes, strive for greatness, all these indicators, the wristbands and all these things. These are all, rituals and indicators of why they're doing what they're doing. And it kind of allows them to build in this routine of what they want to accomplish, right? So when we talk about high performance in business, I think a lot of the same is important. If you're going into, a big business meeting or going into a deep work session where you really need to accomplish something, you have to have a system in place and a routine of getting your body into the flow state to be able to perform at your highest level. And so that's where I see a lot of the overlaps. But yes, of course, the mentality of winning and competitiveness and discipline and drive and all those things matter. And of course, to operate at the highest level mentally, you have to be able to challenge your body physically and be in good physical condition as well. And so to be a good executive in that regard, if we were to take that approach, is also similar to being a good athlete, is training your body and staying healthy and fueling your body properly. All those things matter to everyone, no matter what you're doing.
Gotcha. Hey, so I'm curious, somebody coming to you for help, what are they usually asking? Like, how do they approach you?
Yeah. So, a few different examples of people that would be coming to me for help. People that are in, pretty demanding professional positions or trying to start or build a business, being able to not eliminate, but properly manage stress. There's a ton of stress that we face on a day-to-day basis. And I'm a big proponent that you can't eliminate stress. It's something that exists in our day-to-day life. It's a part of who we are as humans. And it's simply something that we have to be able to face, acknowledge, and manage. And so that's one thing, is people that start to feel sense of burnout from what they're doing and can't quite manage the stresses of a day-to-day demanding job or building a business. Those are a specific, set of people that come to me. The other side of things as well, which I would argue also lead to the stress, is people that kind of lack clarity in their future goals, in their vision, and what they really want for themselves. I've worked with a lot of young professionals coming out of college, and that's a huge struggle that I know a lot of people face, is we're kind of groomed from a young age to just listen to commands and, do our tests and raise our hand when we have a question and, be very precise. And we're basically trained to go into a 9-to-5 workforce and contribute to the economy in that regard. The world is changing drastically. There's online professions, social media, content creation, all these other things that are far less structured. And then you can talk about, trades and things like that, or which I'm a strong believer those are going to become incredibly valuable as we get into the whole AI generation and jobs start to shift. All those trades that don't require traditional schooling will become incredibly important, and therefore schooling will become significantly less important in that regard. But to not go on too much of a tangent, the people that lack clarity on where they're trying to get to, that's also a big subsector of the people that I help. And, I think that intertwines with also people that are looking to build their inner self-confidence and take on, all the challenges that are out there for us to take advantage of and face and overcome and reap the benefits of.
Mm-hmm. Let's get into the bread and butter here. I mean, somebody comes to you, you establish a client. How do you start with them? What's step one?
So, great question. For anyone that's looking to come on as a client, what they would expect is I have a series of course, onboarding questions. And first and foremost, I always start with a, pretty in-depth strategy session and consultation call where I can ask a series of questions, be able to understand where they are at with my, kind of inventory of questions. From there, that gives me a good picture depending on the type of client that I'm working with. And of course, I have a few different types of coaching packages tailored specifically to the people that I help the most. I also run a lot of my clients through a personality inventory where I can, at a more fundamental level and a measurable level, understand who they are and the patterns that exist within their natural behaviors and things of that nature, because that also allows me to communicate, one, with a lot more emotional intelligence and awareness of what makes them tick, and, help communicate in a way that's most, that resonates the most with them. Some people might want to be led in a more authoritative way. Some people prefer a little bit more of a coddling and that kind of laissez-faire of giving them the support and then letting them be on their own versus a little more stern of an approach and making sure to hold them accountable. So that's important as well, to understand who I'm coaching, to be able to tailor my approach to them specifically. From there, I have a series of different things. I've particularly in my top package, what I call my self-actualization course, which is not just a course as you would see online where, I send them on their way and they do some modules and that be that. It's meant for my implementation to kind of walk them through that journey of figuring out who it is that they really are, building out that dream for themselves, and kind of laying out that future path, whether it's their vision, goals, and being able to materialize those things through visualization, verbalization, and reflection, and a number of other things. So I have different programs for different people, but I like to also keep my programs broad enough in the sense that I can work with anyone and then tailor my coaching specifically to them, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah, because everybody's so unique and different. So I like that you have an approach that isn't cookie cutter and trying to fit everybody into the same square.
Exactly. Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, and when you're talking, you said younger entrepreneurs and go-getters, so to speak. So you got guys in their 20s, early 30s. Now here you're talking to two guys that are 60 years old. Okay, we're both still working. But man, let me tell you, I really have a hard time staying motivated. As compared to when I was raising a family and I had all the bills and, you had to get up and go to work and do this and buy the groceries. Now I still, I'm motivated by, the reward, the cash and the paycheck. But now that I don't really have to, I really do have a hard time finding a reason to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning instead of 8:30 or 8:45. So what kind of advice would you throw my way?
Yeah, for sure. And let me just preface, when I say young entrepreneurs, that can mean anyone. What I mean by young is young in the heart and the soul, and someone that has the energy and the ambition to build something. And so no matter, I can't say that I've worked with many people in their 60s, but mid 40s, 50s, no matter what it is, if you're young in the heart and you have the ambition and drive to always be better, then you're young enough for me. So that's what I mean by that. But specifically for people that lack that motivation, right? And I actually was just having this same conversation with a client today. A lot of times when people lack follow through, they lack that what we call motivation, which is really just discipline that occurs when a spark of an emotion happens and then you take action. For people that lack that, typically what's going on is you're lacking a connection of your intended action or result, that connection to your identity. So, for you, if you were to give me a specific example, if it's waking up earlier in the morning, there's a part of you or a pattern that exists that is separate from who you believe yourself to be and that ideal version of yourself. And so when I see people that lack that follow through and that motivation, my first instinct is to understand what patterns exist, what barriers in their mind exist, what those outs are, what those thoughts are, those rationalizations of, oh, well, I can sleep in and, I prioritize sleep for myself, so I'm going to sleep in. But there's some cognitive dissonance of you believe you should be someone that wakes up early in the morning. The first thing is you have to identify what those inner beliefs are and what their identity is. So if I were to ask you, what type of person do you believe yourself to be if you were to describe yourself in relation to whatever you think you lack motivation in?
If I'd be brutally honest, probably a little bit of an underachiever because I don't have to be that anymore.
Okay.
And I'm always saying, okay, tomorrow's the day I'm going to get up. No, I did get up at 6:30 yesterday because I had a commitment to gym to meet him to play pickleball at 7:30. So I'm getting up for that because I have a commitment on Wednesday mornings. But then this morning I think, okay, well, I'm going to get up at 7. I'm going to take that 1.5 mile walk and bust it out in 45 minutes, jump in the pool for a half hour, be ready to hit the work because I work from home. So I don't have to get up and go to the office.
Right.
So it's just, but 6:30 rolls around, man. I just don't, there's no reason to I just don't see it. And like Joe Rogan, I listen to Rogan all the time, he calls that your inner bitch, I have that inner bitch and just go back to sleep for an hour. And I will go in spurts where I'll have that self-discipline for a while. And then all of a sudden it just falls off. Now, this guy is exactly the opposite. When he sets his mind on something, bam, it's just going to get done. And so I don't know. And we're cousins and we've grown up together. We're a month apart. So, we've known each other our entire lives.
Yeah. And so would you say you feel a sense of guilt, of inner guilt when you don't do that thing? Or do you feel kind of content in the sense that, you've worked hard enough to be able to say, hey, I don't need to wake up early. I can do what I want whenever I want. What is it for you?
That's kind of it.
Okay.
In a nutshell,
so then
I'm going to so then like today's a perfect example. I did the same, just like you said. I freaking, instead of popping up at 7, I got up at 8:15, made some coffee, checked my Twitter feed, next thing you know, it's 9 o'clock. I grab a shower, I get started at 10. I made some money, and at 2 o'clock, I'm kind of done, and I'm kind of satisfied with that. Now, when really, if I just got balls to the wall, I could really be productive. And especially for what I do, because I'm in the solar business. I do battery backups where we do, I'm not going to say, but the biggest manufacturers out there, I rep them. So we sell quality stuff. And I do fine for what I do. I just wish that I could just say, hey, man, for 6 months, if I just cranked ass, that I could, but I just don't feel like it. I did that for years and years and years, and now I'm just kind of done. But I really want to do it again, but just need someone like you to kick me in the ass.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm happy to kick you in the ass if you need, but I would also say, that is perfectly okay. And on one hand, I'm a mental performance coach, and I'm all about holding people accountable and really helping them stay disciplined and habits and routines and all these different things. But at the same time, there's not a right solution for everyone. And as long as when I ask if you feel that inner guilt, what that usually is an indication to me is that there's something that you're doing that's outside of your identity and that perceived self. And so as long as you don't feel that, then I would argue that it's okay that as long as you're accomplishing the things that you want to accomplish, I think it was Jeff Bezos that I had heard speak about his morning routine of, he's not an early riser. He wakes up when he wants to wake up and he moseys around. And of course he's worth, $250 billion, but that's what he does. And he runs Amazon. So, or maybe not anymore directly, but that's totally okay. And there's people out there that do great for the world and for themselves without all of those, 10-step morning routines and all those things. But yeah, certainly to your point, if that's something that you feel like you need to be doing or want to be doing, then there are systems and structures that will allow you to do that. And I believe that we fall to the level of our systems. And so if there isn't a system in place and you want to achieve something, then that's the first step, is to create that system. And then over a period of time, you hold yourself accountable to that system and you build that new habit. Over really the course, it takes around 2 months to fully build out a habit. So yeah, but that sounds totally fine. I mean, it sounds like you're doing well for yourself, and playing pickleball when you want to play pickleball. I just started that recently with my girlfriend. It's been pretty fun, but as long as you feel good about where you're at, I think that's important.
Well, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I do have that guilt, at 2:30 or 3 o'clock but then at 4:30 or 5, when the normal workday ends and my office in Fort Myers is closed, then I feel better. As soon as I know they're not answering the phones and my workday is over. But that's just something I have to kind of think about a little bit further. But
happy to talk further about
that. It is a discipline issue that I have a lack of, and
okay, yeah.
I need to
work. No, I hear you. I'd love to have more of a conversation. I mean, those are things that totally intrigue me, and I think when it comes to what we call lack of discipline, it's just a lack of clarity around the actions that you need to take. If I were to give you a clear, 5-step sequence of things that you need to do to be ultimately productive, and it was clear as day exactly what you needed to do in the order that you needed to do it, chances are, you're a successful professional in doing well in your specific industry. Chances are you could probably crush that 5-step sequence without a second thought. But the times where we don't take the action and we lack that discipline is when we lack the clarity on the way to get there, and kind of overwhelm ourselves with all the other what ifs and should I be doing this, that, or the other thing. And so that ultimately is what it is. And I think when it's common to, especially, with my age, and you scroll social media and you have all these guys out there saying, oh, you're lazy, you're not disciplined, you're this and that. I'm a very complex thinker. And a lot of times that leads to a level of procrastination or what we would call lack of discipline, because I don't follow through in the moment each and every time with every single thing that I say that I'm going to do. But really, it's just a clutter in my mind of so many things I want to accomplish, and sometimes takes the time to take a few steps backwards, build up that framework, build up that clarity to be able to then start to take those steps forward into converting on the intended actions that we thought we wanted to do before, but just didn't know how to do it. If that makes sense. So that's for the purpose of saying that we need to break down any of that guilt, because that guilt also holds us back from the right thoughts and the right action. And as soon as you can eliminate that guilt and just build up the system one piece at a time, you get that clarity. Now you have that confidence to convert on the action, and now you're disciplined again.
As you were talking, I'm thinking about what triggers me to actually get things done. And when I see them in writing, now it's a task.
Have that structure.
If I write it in my calendar or my day planner on my whiteboard over my desk, now it's something I have to get done. Every time I look up or answer the phone, get sidetracked, I still see it up there.
Yes, exactly.
So when okay, well, thanks. Now I need to write stuff down more. The key number one to this conversation.
Now I know how to get him to get things done too.
Yeah, write them down. Right
there. You go. There you go.
Whiteboard, Rick. Write this down.
Yeah.
But it turns in. But when it's actually written down, and you see it, or I see it in front of me, then it becomes real that this has to get done.
Yes.
And
absolutely,
we talked to a bunch of different folks, different life coaches, nutritionists, through our podcasts. And one thing that it seems always uh, that always just keeps coming up is this affirmations. If And I've never really been a believer in that, but recently I've been starting to use them more, and I kind of see how that does help, where it kind of adds some focus through the day. Is that something that you're,
100%.
I mean, are you an advocate of that?
Yeah, so I would say, I'm probably even more similar to where you were at before as far as that goes. Absolutely an advocate of it. What I would say is it's very easy within our kind of colloquial language and the way we communicate about affirmations. It's easy to look at it and think of it as this like kind of I don't know what you want to call it.
Kind of
This
hocus pocus.
Hocus, exactly. I was going to say that, but I didn't know if it was applicable. It's easy to think of it in that way, but the way I see affirmations, and if you really just break it down, it's a way to just reaffirm the things that we believe or want to believe. And so what the spin that I put on it within my process contains the 4 things that I mentioned before, which is idealization, visualization, verbalization, and materialization. And that's a way to say, okay, I'm going to actually take the time to idealize and think about all those things that I want. And then I'm going to actually visualize it to know that it can be real and see that it can be real. And I'm going to verbalize it to actually put it out into the world and say, this is who I am. This is who I want. This is what I'm going to achieve. And then you materialize it with the action as a way to reaffirm all those previous 3 things. So in a sense, that is affirmation, but it's more tangible in the sense that it takes action, and I've kind of gone into just some funny arguments with people that talk about manifestation and just saying things and they magically become true. I don't know what people believe out there or people listening to this. I do think in a sense it's hard to argue that there's not some sort of force in the world that exists beyond us and beyond our consciousness. I think that's very hard to argue that doesn't exist. At the same time, I think it's also hard to argue that I can manifest something simply by saying it one time and it automatically happens. There's a whole scientific explanation on how that works. And so when I hear any of these terms, manifestation, affirmation, whatever, I think it's important to break it down a little more tangibly so that you don't turn some people away and so that people actually can grasp onto it and kind of make something happen of that. And so
well, it seems a little more scientific and analytical the way that you're approaching it.
Yes, just, of course.
Than hocus pocus.
Exactly. Yeah. And, I guess that's just the way my mind operates, but I also think it's harder to dispute. And it also makes it more inclusive, so to speak, because it's more tangible. And so, within my dream builder, what the word dream stands for in that scenario, other than, of course, idealizing your dreams and all those things, is discipline, resilience, execution, awareness, and materialization. And so that's what I consider within my dream builder to be the kind of recipe to achieve your dreams.
Got it. Hey, so I want to switch gears a little bit. It's not really switching gears because it applies just the same.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons that I was looking for somebody that does what you're doing is more in the sports psychology realm, and you've done sports psychology through your coaching and stuff. But I keep running into people that get the yips, and for some reason they get the yips when they serve in pickleball when they play against me.
Yeah. Okay.
I went down to Florida a couple of years ago, played with his brother. He calls me up the other day. He calls me JP. He's like, JP, since that time you came down here and played with me, I've had the yips. I can't get my serves in. My wife's got that problem. She gets the yips, can't get her serve in. I play with this guy, great player here in Port Charlotte. His name's Mark. He goes, man, ever since that first day I played against you, I got the yips. I can't get rid of the yips. So can you talk about the yips and what people do to need to get over them? And idea why I'm causing this, I'd really like to know that too.
I think Phil Mickelson had about 15 or 20 years ago, he had a gig where he was saying, man, or he was getting accused. He never talked about it, but Johnny Miller sure ragged on him for missing 3-foot putts in clutch situations. I'm not sure I'm a believer in the yips. I think it's just,
okay.
I've seen people get them. It happens, and they can't get rid of it.
Well, that's true. But the
Professional
yip,
sports.
but
players.
so is choking and the yips the same thing? I would think they're pretty
Ooh.
similar.
Yeah. So
Why?
yeah,
Well, before you go on, I think
let's
of
hear.
yips
What do you
as
think?
something repetitive that you just can't get out of that body mechanics because your brain's not triggering right, and you keep doing it
Yeah.
over and over again. Where a choke is like a one-time thing, unless you're choking every single time.
Well,
Right. Yeah.
Your
So
thoughts?
well,
yeah.
okay.
No, yeah. So I would say this first and foremost. If we were to really get into semantics and differentiate the two, I would say choking more so that occurrence of you're under a high level of stress and it's it's a big moment and you don't execute on what is generally intended to happen, right? If it's a free throw and you miss a free throw, well, maybe your statistics and the percentages dictated that you were going to miss it anyway. You never really know, but so I think that's more situational. Choking is more situational of like it's a big moment and this was supposed to happen and you choked and you dropped the ball. With the yips, definitely more of that psychological, physiological phenomenon of just simply losing the ability to perform in whatever it is that you're doing. And when you think about that, what I've seen is a number of things. And actually, if I were to bring back up that idea of ritual and routine, that's one thing directly that I've seen prevent that as well, because it takes out a lot of the guesswork of what you're doing, and it also helps you reduce stress and manage your stress and anxiety levels in a situation. So the yips specifically have had, I mean, the way that I look at it, the yips specifically lead to a decrease in your actual motor skills and your actual ability to simply perform, because your body goes into this type of fight or flight response where your amygdala is going crazy and you're totally stress induced, and then it shuts down, at least in the scale that we're equating it to, and it could be a totally different scale. Maybe a pickleball serve is different than the final drive in the PGA Championship or whatever it is. So that's something that I've seen is, in order to reduce, let's call it the yips, is to regulate your breathing first and foremost. That's I've seen has had a huge response or has had a huge effect on the body's response. Specifically when I work with, and I do still coach some basketball players. I still do some private training, and I've worked with a few golfers, which is where I've seen it's most prominent. As you mentioned, Phil Mickelson, breathing is huge because it helps regulate your body a bit. And typically when you go into a high level of stress, you kind of reduce your oxygen levels in your body, and then you everything's out of whack, and then your motor skills decrease. And so that's huge. Breath work helps manage your body's response to anxiety. And then that routine is not secondary, but after breath work, having a solid routine and consistent foul shot routine or pre-drive routine or whatever the case is can help manage your anxiety in the moment. It takes out that variability in whatever you're doing from stroke to stroke or shot to shot, and it keeps everything consistent. So where you almost numb your body and your body's neurological response to any of those external stimulus of the stresses of the moment or things like that. That's why, NBA players can walk up and hit a free throw any other time of the day, but they might be in a high pressure situation and it just doesn't fall. That means that they haven't refined that routine enough to basically numb their body's response to any external stimulus and kind of close the circuit in their mind of whatever they're performing. The other thing too is what I've seen is if you take a break and just have someone do jumping jacks or run a few laps, something that kind of moves the body and helps regulate blood flow and things like that. That's also something that I've seen tangibly could help the yips, but that's just what I've experienced.
Can't really do that between pickleball serves though.
Well,
I can run a lap. I'll be right back.
Well, no,
Yeah.
sure you can. I mean, yeah, I mean, I do things to break up. If I'm having no matter what it is. I mean, Jim and I both were athletes through our whole lives. Played hockey when we were kids up north. I played softball and adult leagues till my mid-40s and just any sport and golf and I've been competitive my whole life, but it doesn't. Whenever I've been in that situation where if I'm playing for money on the golf course, I got to make this, 6-foot putt for $20 in the kitty or whatever. I love to gamble, although I'm a cheapskate gambler. But I love to win.
Yeah.
And if I have that extra little feeling of butterflies that's when I take a step breath, like you said, take a couple deep breaths, look up at the sky, try to forget where I'm at for just an instant, and then come back to where I'm at and focus and get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I will never, ever be intimidated by anything of you on the pickleball court, even though you are better than me. I must admit, he is better than me. But I still love losing to him because I'll always try to win.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. And the other thing too to note is it's all tied to your thought process. And when I say that closed circuit of thinking, closed circuit versus open circuit, meaning when you close the circuit of your thoughts into your routine, you shut out any negative beliefs or any external noise in the sense of your inner speak, and you allow your routine to take precedent over that. When the circuit opens, that means there's something in your routine that allows some thought to creep in of maybe like the importance of that moment or that specific shot or whatever it is. And so that's something that's been pretty interesting to watch as well. That, along with what I always remind people, nervousness and excitement are the exact same emotion. Your body just can't differentiate it. And the only difference in the two is the context that we put to it. And so when we tell ourselves that we're nervous for something, that is an indicator to us that we're doing something wrong or we shouldn't feel that way, when in reality that's actually just the body's physiological response telling itself that it's time to perform. And so if we were to shift that into excitement, then we can think about it in a more positive light and be able to take action and perform on it. So that's just something I felt was somewhat relevant that I just wanted to add.
Yeah, I get that. And I sometimes tell people that I see that are nervous is like, don't be nervous, be excited. But
exactly, yeah,
they don't seem able to make that switch.
Yeah. It's so interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes. I don't know what does it. What gets them there?
Yeah.
I just like if I'm in a situation where it's a high stress or high anxiety situation, I kind of think back to it in what you were saying earlier, open and closing that circuit.
Yes.
I would have to think that if you're a good meditator or practice meditation, to keep that switch closed is going to be you're going to have a far better ability to do that if you practice meditation, because it really is kind of the same thing or the same mental functions, are they not? Am I on the right track there?
Yeah, certainly on the right track. I think, being able to meditate, and that's a challenge that even I've faced, is being able to sit with your thoughts enough and be able to move on from them and focus. For me, what I try to do is I do box breathing, and what I'll do is I'll do my breaths and I'll try to count to 20 of 20 square reps of breathing. So maybe I usually do 4x4, or I do the 4-7-8 method, and I try to count to 20. And a lot of times I can't make it there, and most people can't make it to 20. They'll lose track because they'll have a thought and they lose count. Being able to practice that and continue to kind of close that loop in your thinking, I think go hand in hand. Being able to silence your thoughts, or rather, I should say, not silence your thoughts, but rather address them and let them pass. Definitely can be related to closed loop thinking or closed circuit thinking. Yeah.
So you mentioned breathing a couple of times. I've done a lot of breath work. I'm really schooled in breathing. When you talk about having somebody that's about to do something performance wise to get into what you call getting into the flow, what breathing technique do you recommend for them?
Yeah. So great question. I would say it somewhat depends on the stage that they're in their routine.
Mm-hmm.
The something that's worked for a lot of my clients when they're just in need of a quick kind of reset, and they're feeling kind of anxiety. They feel that feeling build up in their chest of, just overwhelmed. The
Mm-hmm.
physiological sigh is something that I share with everyone, is super helpful. For those, I'm sure but for those that might not know that listen, it's just basically a deep inhale followed by a nice little extra inhale at the top. And I like to say, if it doesn't like hurt your chest, you're probably not doing it right. And then you let it out, and it actually just kind of it just really helps reset in a lot of different ways. And so that's something that I think is huge. The other thing,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, I would say 4-7-8 and box breathing are what I'm most familiar with. I'm not the most attuned in the breathwork world. One of my friends is a certified breathwork coach, and you probably have better insights on this, but those are the two things that I've seen have helped me a lot. The other thing that I've started doing recently is just simply 20 deep inhales and forceful exhales, just rapidly. And you want to do that in a safe place where you're seated, because you'll get a little lightheaded, but that's actually a signal that it's doing what it should be. That's also something that's been pretty helpful.
Yeah, I've often wanted to talk about breath work and podcasting, but sometimes I'm worried that somebody that's driving listening to a podcast might start some breathing techniques. Wouldn't want that to happen.
No, definitely best to do sitting still in a safe space. Physiological side, though, I feel is pretty safe to do once or twice, no matter where you are.
Yeah, for sure. The box breathing, I actually got exposed to that before I got into yoga. I was actually while I was in the Navy, in boot camp, I got sent to a class that they send people to that fail their first drug test.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So in that class,
1982,
83.
I wonder what drug that was. No, I'm just kidding.
Look at me. But anyway, they had us in the class doing that breathing, and it was like, wow. And later I learned how it really regulates you in terms of your breath either sends you into sympathetic mode or parasympathetic mode, fight or flight or relaxation, and that kind of puts you in a state of equanimity doing the box breathing. So if those that don't know, you're inhaling for a certain count, like maybe inhaling for 6 seconds. You're going to hold the breath in without straining for 6 seconds. You're going to exhale for 6 seconds, and then you're going to retain the breath. I don't like to say hold the breath because people sometimes strain when they hold the breath.
Mm-hmm.
You retain the breath in the body for 6 seconds, and then you just repeat that cycle. So you can visualize going around the sides of a box to help you. But it's a very potent and effective breath for sure.
And and why?
Because it regulates your parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous system, so it puts you in a state of equanimity. You're not going in one direction or the other direction. So if you're all hyped up and nervous, your sympathetic nervous system kicking you into fight or flight, well, then it can relax you. If you're too relaxed and just all dulled out, it can boost you up.
So if you're having a stressed out day at work, come home, you don't want to kick the dog or yell at your wife.
Oh, please don't kick the dog.
I would never do that. I mean, you don't want to do that, never. So you lay down, you start doing some box breathing, and and how long should you do something like that for?
So you feel relaxed enough to really come good.
I mean, are we talking something like 30 seconds or
you'll start to feel effects,
or
you'll start to feel effects in a few minutes.
And what are those effects?
You're gonna try it. It's gonna calm you down. It's gonna
chill you out. It's a calming type.
Yeah.
Because I never heard of box breathing until just now. Okay. See, Jim's a lot more. I'm like the novice guy. I'm just kind of getting it. Everything we're talking about most of the time on every podcast is something that I have no clue of. So I learn every single time we talk to somebody, and so I'm not afraid to ask the stupid questions, because I know other people out there are probably thinking the same things.
There's no stupid questions.
Yeah, really.
No, that's a great way to be. I think life's a lot more boring when you're not learning. So it's always good to have new things to learn. Yeah, that's how I am, at least.
And as you get our age, your brain really needs to be learning things to be efficient and to really thrive. If you're just
Yeah.
not learning things at our age, your brain's decreasing. You know, the
Mhm. Yeah,
results
no,
are,
for
you
sure.
know, dementia, Alzheimer's, things that they're affecting
Yeah,
the brain if you're not using it. So
absolutely.
very important.
Uh, what do you think about nootropics? Are you an advocate or?
Yeah, so I'm not I'm pretty neutral on it. I don't think that they're bad. I think that there's a lot more to be studied. There are certain stacks that I think are very beneficial. You know, I am in somewhat in some ways I'm very forward thinking, and I love science and I love not modern technology, but in a lot of ways I am a bit primitive, and I like to look at what's worked in the past in human history and understand those patterns. Uh, but yeah, I'm pretty neutral on it. I think there's a lot more to be learned. One specific, I wouldn't call it a nootropic stack. It's really just uh, a few different quick fixes for people that drink caffeine. I guess I'll just mention in alignment with this because this seems to resonate with more people than the idea of, you know, starting to take all sorts of nootropic stacks. For people that drink caffeine and want to maybe reduce their dependency on it, I don't drink caffeine at all. I don't do any other drugs or any nootropics or anything like that. So again, I'm not speaking from, well, at least with the caffeine, I've noticed an effect for the minimal amounts that I drink. But caffeine in combination with L-theanine is the one thing that I believe, aside from creatine within exercise, that's one thing that's proven plenty and is beneficial. But caffeine in combination with L-theanine, I think, is the one thing that I would be a proponent of if I were to say I'm a proponent of anything, because I've seen it really kind of allow people to reduce the jitters or crashing from caffeine, and a lot of people are very dependent on it. And so I'll just mention that for anyone that drinks a lot of caffeine. One specific thing to do is to drink it in combination with an L-theanine supplement, or transition from a coffee into matcha, which would naturally have L-theanine present. That's something that I am a strong believer in.
L-theanine?
L-theanine, yes.
L-theanine.
Yeah.
Can you
So
enlighten me there?
Yeah, for sure. It's an amino acid, and basically the human body doesn't produce it on its own. And so while it's not essential, it's just been proven to help the side effects from caffeine. And so it helps with kind of easing some of the jitters. It also helps the actual performance of the caffeine.
So is it a supplement you take?
Yeah, it's a supplement that you can get. Like I said, it also is like matcha usually has L-theanine in it naturally, but it just helps to kind of blunt the blood pressure impact on coffee. And
really,
when you drink coffee, your blood pressure increases, and so it helps kind of helps that subside a little bit, so you don't feel that jolt of energy and then crash. The other thing too is, for anyone drinking coffee, one thing that I'm shocked by, is how people don't understand how coffee works. And sometimes I feel like I'm speaking plain knowledge, but understanding how coffee works to be able to drink it in the right way strategically, I think, is important as well, because both caffeine and sugar are the two most addictive drugs that exist, and they're both legal, and they're both very dangerous if you don't moderate them. So knowing how coffee works and being able to withhold any coffee intake until the adenosine in your brain is able to burn off in the morning, and a lot of those other things. Those are some things that I really focus in on with a lot of my more established professionals that might just be in these routines of waking up and going right to the espresso machine and kind of just jacking up their brain chemistry. I could go on for days about the neuroscience with that, but that's important to be aware of as well. So I guess that's kind of similar to the idea of nootropics.
Well, I've become aware of the sugar issue. I mean, really, in probably the last few years, and how addictive it is and how dangerous it is. And just today I heard that people that cut out sugar, I heard a story. He had pre-diabetes issues. Cut out all the sugar, was a younger guy in his 40s or 50s, but he was getting sugar from he was vaping. So he was
Oh,
getting
wow.
sugar from the flavored vape mainlining into his lungs, which was making, because he had
Jeez.
one of those glucose monitors.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
when he
yeah.
was vaping, it was so
Spike.
now
Wow.
That's crazy.
yeah, I'm one of those guys that vapes. I should know. But that really made me think about how, I
Yeah,
mean, I really watch my sugar intake. I don't watch, I'm a caffeine junkie, but I do know how dangerous sugar is and how addictive it is, because it's hard.
yeah.
It's a hard habit to
Oh,
break. But when I heard that about
yeah.
vaping, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
supposed to be really bad for your lungs in general.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Aside from the other
Yeah,
chemicals, I mean, you wonder why it's so addictive
Right.
now. That I didn't know that a lot of those juices have sugar in it, but it makes total sense.
I didn't. I
But
didn't
wow.
either till
Yeah.
today, and I was like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
That you could get an insulin or a sugar glucose. Well, you know better than me. You're
Yeah.
a nurse,
Glucose
but
spike from a
a
vape.
glucose
Yeah.
spike, and they get the insulin up and down and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's so
Huh.
that can't be good if you're 17, 18 years old, and
Definitely not.
Can't
where
be
all
good
that.
if you're 60 either.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
I'm
Wow.
getting better at a lot of things over the last 5, 10, 15 years. I
Yeah.
did one step at a time, but I think
Yeah.
I'm pretty much
1% every
done.
day. Yeah.
There you go. 1%
Right?
every
I
day.
like that. Yeah, I want to comment on the
Yeah.
coffee. I started drinking coffee later in life than most people do. And then I go through these on and off periods of coffee and no coffee. And just recently, probably 2 months ago, I quit drinking coffee again. But then
Okay.
one day I had a lot of editing to do. So I took, I don't know, maybe just a little quarter cup of coffee, and I sat down and I was amazed at the effect on my body system from just a little bit. And I had been drinking cup and a half, 2 cups, but I was working as a nurse, working long 12-hour shifts, sometimes night shift. It's the only thing keeping me going at night. So it's felt good to get off, but man,
Yeah.
just a quarter cup and what it can do to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a
Pretty
strong
crazy.
drug. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will pound a pot of coffee every single day. I
Yeah.
just do, but it doesn't affect me. I could seriously, I could drink a
It
pot of
doesn't
coffee
affect him at
between
all.
now and between now and 10 o'clock and be asleep at 10:30.
That
Wow.
doesn't mean it's
Yeah,
not
that's impressive.
affecting you.
No,
Well,
I'm not
you know what-
saying it. I'm not saying it doesn't affect me physiologically.
Okay.
However,
Right. Yeah.
You can sleep at night.
I can sleep. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Since
Yeah.
I can, I'm not going to go home and
You
pound
built
a pot
up
of
a
coffee.
tolerance. Yeah.
I have.
Yeah.
I have.
Yeah.
That's easy to
Okay.
do with coffee. You go from that half a cup to a cup to 2 cups. But
Right. Right. Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, hey Jesse,
So-
this is kind of cool. I didn't really expect this conversation to go this way, but just to hear how all these like different things are kind of affect each one of us in different ways, like the sugar
for
thing,
sure.
the caffeine thing, and the meditation thing, and a couple of little things. If you were going to give somebody advice, hey, here's a couple of small things you can do to improve, no matter who you are, what
Yeah.
you do, whether you're retired, working, a student, a pro, whatever, mowing grass. What would you say? Hey, this is a good practice to put in place every day.
Yeah, for sure. Great question. And it's honestly a very simple answer and might be hopefully second nature to a lot of people nowadays, not so much for younger generations, but top three without question is number one, wake up, look into not look directly into the sun, but get sunlight into your eyes, activate that circadian clock and move your body. Those two things, as well as hydration. And, if you decide to go down the route of taking the extra level of care to take proper electrolytes, hydration, sunlight, and movement in the morning is the pillar for any sort of longevity in your health. So those are the three things that I always go to. And, on one hand, there's a lot of people that have their 12-step morning routines of breath work and journaling and reading and all these things. But if you just hit those three and just maintain a proactive morning rather than a reactive morning, that is absolutely, without a doubt, the recipe to success. And to just go into a little bit more of a level of detail to the proactivity versus reactivity, especially for a lot of younger people that get sucked into social media early in the morning. It's just more so about being mindful and conscious of what you intend to do for the day, have clarity on that in combination with those three other habits that I mentioned. And, it just leads to a much more calm outlook and to the day, and allows you to take action more effectively, especially when your body is up and awake and knows it needs to perform. So yeah, those are the three things, and proactivity.
Well,
That's
I think I told you 20 minutes ago that the first thing I do when I get up in the morning is plant my ass on the couch and make some coffee and scroll through my Twitter feed. But I tell you what, I'm going to tell you right now that tomorrow morning, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make it a point to get up early. I'm going to go outside. I mean, we live in Florida.
Yeah.
We're blessed
Yeah, exactly.
that we can get outside in December, January, February, and get
Absolutely.
that sunshine in us. And I saw on one of your YouTube channels about getting that 2 or 3 minutes of
Oh,
sunlight,
great.
direct
Yeah.
sunlight every single day. And I spend a ton of time outside, so I know I get that. But
that's good.
To get it first thing in the morning, I think probably is something I never really thought about, that I'm going to start tomorrow and just go out and
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I recently read an article on that, and they were saying how important it is for brain function to keep you energized through the day, just getting that first bit of daylight. Like a lot of times we wake up, we're still in the dark, we're fumbling around, low light. They're saying, no, bright lights in the morning, get it going.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
But if you're in Maine or Massachusetts or Michigan, you're not going to want to do that in January. So you have to find other ways to make that happen, which I get there are ways to substitute for that. But down here, there's no reason that
no excuse. Yeah. I always like to say,
if someone before the sun rises, that makes it a little tough.
Yeah, that does make it tough, but at least if you get up before the sun rises and you move your body a little bit, again, it's like I mentioned, I'm very primitive in a lot of ways. If you just think of how life was 1,000 years ago, you wake up, you go try to find your hunt for the day, and you're running around in the sunlight, and your body knows it needs to perform. It's like, it's as simple as that. And so our body has circadian clocks, our circadian rhythms, which are tied to the sun and all that. But we also have ultradian rhythms, which are productivity rhythms throughout the day, which are tied closely to your circadian rhythms, right? You're not going to have the proper ultradian rhythms if your body isn't awake and knows it needs to perform. So yeah, those two are tied together. So if you want to be productive, you need to have an awakened mind and body to do so.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a question that we've been started recently with our podcast.
Cool.
So Jesse, what are you doing to make the world a better place?
Oh, I love it. Yeah, that's such a simple question, but damn, isn't that something that we should think about more often? I think, for me, my priority and how I'm making the world a better place, I hope, is by just trying to lead with curiosity and connect with as many people as possible, and both learn from them, but also be able to help provide any insights from my experiences to help them have a greater outlook on life, so that they can make a better impact on the world as well. And that's something that's really important for me. It's like I've faced too many experiences and have met too many people where the outlook on life is a bit negative, or if they feel victimized by their circumstance or surroundings. I think that's a really tough way to approach the world. And if I'm able to help anyone to turn that around and make their day-to-day better, hopefully that has a ripple effect to the people around them. And so that's the one thing for me. And then as far as, building my businesses and being able to support the people that I love and care about, I guess that's a more localized or smaller impact on the world, but it's my world. So hopefully it feels bigger and bigger to me. But
hey, if we can all impact a couple of people in our lives that are close to us, or in our immediate circle, or even, through our professional lives, if you can affect them and make positive changes,
exactly,
those always come back to you. It's all karma, right? The more you give, the more you get.
Yeah.
So
he's sounding more and more like a yogi every day.
Hey. Oh, it's good. It's good.
Yeah. All right. Any final thoughts you want to share with those that are listening right now?
Yeah. No specific final thoughts. I really appreciate both of you guys for having me on, and it's been a really fun conversation. Yeah, and what I would encourage to anyone, and whether you reach out to me, when I've been going on, I've been making an effort to make appearances at least a few times a month when I can. And one thing I've been offering is, no call, like just total out of curiosity for me to be able to meet more people and offer my impact to whoever else. I've been offering free consultations. So whether it's reaching out to me for that or anyone else, I encourage everyone to seek out someone, whether it's a mentor or a therapist or a coach, someone that you can kind of tackle your goals alongside, and don't feel like you need to do it yourself. And if you really have ambition, you're not going to get anywhere on your own. It's always good to have people around you and learn from other people. So I guess that would kind of be a bit of a pitch for myself and my services. I do have a few more spots that I'm bringing on for the rest of the quarter. And so if you feel like you need help, reach out to me. I'm happy to have a discussion, see if we could be a good fit. Otherwise, go and find someone else that'll be a great fit for you as well, because I think it's ultimately invaluable to be able to have a support system around us to help us achieve all the things that we want to achieve. So,
cool. Very good.
Agreed.
I guess I could.
Agreed 100%.
Yeah, I guess maybe my socials will be linked somewhere, but MindPeak Co is my company. You can look that up on Instagram or TikTok, or mindpeakco.com is my website. My personal Instagram is Jesse H. Hoffman. So I guess that's my little, whatever you want to call it.
We'll link to you in the show notes.
Yes,
And,
cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time. We appreciate everything you've shared with us. Yeah, you've been a great guest.
And maybe have you back in a few months, check back in with you.
That'd be great. That'd be great. I really enjoyed this conversation. So thank you both.
Cool, man.
We did too. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jesse.
Right.
Yep.
Thanks. Have a good one, guys. Have a good night.
So if you just listen to this podcast and you appreciate the content and the work that we're doing, we would love your support. Look in the comment section of this episode. Subscribe, rate us, comment. This gets our podcast in front of other listeners. And if you noticed, we don't have advertisers. For the cost of a cup of coffee, you can help keep it this way. Become a supporter right now. We'd appreciate it. I'm Jim the Yogi.
I'm Rick the BeachMan.
Peace.